Hey everyone, and welcome to part 5 of our top 50 movies of the 2010s from Mild Fuzz TV. This is going to have numbers 30 through 26. Make sure you check out the first 4 parts to catch up on all the entries so far. But without further ado, here is number 30.
Number 30, horror movie. More of a thriller, but it's Don't Breathe, which I want to talk kind of B movie, kind of pulpy. You know, these teens break into a blind man's house thinking it's going to be an easy score. Nah, man, this dude's essentially Daredevil, right? He can't see, but that doesn't mean he's helpless. And you end up finding out some things about this man, and you're kind of like, oh wait, maybe just because he's blind doesn't mean he's sympathetic. And yeah, it goes to some places. It makes you cringe. It's called Don't Breathe, and I found myself holding my breath a lot because you don't want to make a lot of sound. And yeah, that director, he's the same guy that did Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it's a whole lot of fun. Again, it's very tense, which is something I enjoy. And Jane Levy is the main character. She's really great. She's another actress I haven't seen too much of lately. I think Netflix got her. I think she's on a Netflix series.
No, she's about to be on a musical series on, I think it's ABC, or is it NBC? I don't know. She's going to start a TV show. And she was on Castle Rock season 1 last year.
Castle Rock. Yeah, there we go. So. Hulu, not Netflix. But yeah. But no, she's really good. Yeah, so Don't Breathe. I highly recommend, guys. It's yeah. And I blame Pete for all the horror, because these are movies I otherwise wouldn't have seen. Up until I used to be afraid of horror movies. Now I embrace it.
Yeah, Don't Breathe's good. Don't Breathe. A lot of the horror movies I like tend to have really simple premises, but the premise lends itself to a mechanic, and the mechanic in this case is we have to be quiet so he can't hear us, because that's the way he can detect us. And that leads to a lot of really simple ideas of like, okay, so now we have to get through certain rooms that are quite loud, or we have to do certain things that create noise, and so on and so on. And it works really well. It does go to really extreme places once it starts to reveal some things, which is a little bit over the top, but I think if you're in the B-movie mood already, it'll work with that. But yeah, so
sure.
So maybe not as elegant as something like And It Follows. It's got a lot of charm in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Lots of charm. Lots of other stuff, but you can go see that and know what we're talking about.
My number 30 is going to piss you off. It is Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
I'm not pissed off. I'm just saddened by the state of the world. Yeah,
no. This is a great movie, no matter what Pete says. He thinks there's no characters in it that are interesting. There are multiple characters that are interesting, that are good and well formed.
I mean, yeah, if you love cardboard, yeah, this movie has all the characters for you.
Yeah. This movie's great. It's a blast. It's so much fun. It's a trailer where obviously you kind of know how it's going to end, and it works because of that, not in spite of it. Where it has all these characters that you're like, okay, you know the outcome, but it does enough with those characters that it works anyway.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
It does. I'm sorry, but it does. And the last 10 minutes are some of the best Star Wars content put to screen. That's just a fact. This is a great Star Wars movie, no matter what anyone else says.
That is the Autopsy of Jane Doe. Again, this really cool bottle horror movie.
I love a bottle movie, Timmy. I love a bottle movie.
And again, just like an interesting idea I feel like you don't see a lot of, where it's focused on these father and son mortician who are called in to do this kind of last minute autopsy on this Jane Doe that the police have found. And as they're performing the autopsy, they're finding a lot of weird stuff about the body that shouldn't be right, and then weird stuff starts happening around them. And I just really, really dig it. I think the acting's great. I think it's just a really cool, unique idea, and I like the setting. Again, I just feel like, oh yeah, this is like a perfect place for like a horror movie, and that you don't see a lot of. And I think it's like really effective.
Yeah, I already kind of gave my complaints. We mentioned this in the horror list, so I'll reserve my negativity and just let you have it. Let you have the entry.
We're on number 30. and number 30 is Coco.
Oh.
It's a Disney movie, Disney Pixar. It is really, I mean, probably the most beautiful film on my list. Just gorgeous colors. It's really nice to get these movies for other cultures that I don't really know so well. Like those tend to be a lot of my favorite Disney films when they explore that. Like Mulan is a really great film. I'm really looking forward to the live action one. And Coco is, you know, a culture that I don't really know. And I live in California, like I'm right next to Mexico, and had a ton of friends from Mexico growing up. And it was just not a culture that I really knew. Like I had no idea what Day of the Dead was. I thought it was like a Halloween. But it turns out, of course, it's about ancestors, and they do a really, really sweet, beautiful story. And there's a great dog in it. So I love Coco. And of course, at the end, I just cry my eyes out. It's so great.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I'm sorry. I can't comment.
Yes. Well, really good.
But if it makes you feel any better, you're not the only person with this on the list.
Respect, Matt.
My number 30 is Dread, which is the Carl Urban science fiction dystopia, one tower block, evil villain played by Lena Headey, and it is the rise through the tower to get to her. It is a John Carpenter movie that wasn't directed by John Carpenter. And I mean that in John Carpenter's prime, not present day John Carpenter. The music is so pulsing, the action is so good, the characterization of Dredd and Anderson are both really good. It has a lot of fun, inventive action sequences with slow motion. It is very impressive on its very small budget, and it's just a world that's cool to be in for 2 hours. Is ultimately what it boils down to. But ultimately, it's the type of movie that doesn't get made a whole lot these days anymore. There was a time in the 80s and maybe even the 70s where this type of movie was kind of consistent, a consistent staple at the box office. Now it happens once in a while, and it's usually foreign, and even when it does come out, it bombs like this one did, and it's a shame because we could do some more variety. But hey,
we could. No, this is a great movie, and it sucks that it bombed, but that's why they don't make them, because people don't go and see them.
I tell you what, it saved the I Am the Law for, whereas the first Judge Dredd movie was whipping I Am the Law out every 30 seconds, the new Dredd saved it for a pivotal moment, and it was delightful.
So number 29, first time, is it the first time I'm gonna have it? Yep. I'm gonna have an ape on my list, and this is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. as I said earlier, go back and watch some of the other ones. The best of the trilogies. If I got it right, I always mess up the namings because I feel like they messed it up. Because to me, dawn comes before sun has to dawn before it's rising. But I always feel they do. But this is the one with Jason Clarke, right?
Yes.
And Koba, who's the kind of the main heavy in this. It's ape versus ape, and Andy Serkis as Caesar doesn't get enough credit. Like we talk about it all the time. But man, he's so good in this one, and you forget that that's not an actual chimpanzee, right? Like just the physical acting he does, and it's the same with some of the other ape characters. I know Tony Kebbell played Koba, and he kind of gets lost in a lot of that. But yeah, this is the apes establishing society after the events. I think the dogs and cats are fighting, but society's kind of on the downfall after the end of the first one, and the apes have forged their own society, and mankind's kind of encroaching. Kerry Russell's in this one too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they all kind of blend into one long movie in my head at this point. And yeah, there's callbacks to the first, but it almost kind of stands alone. Like if you don't see the first one, I think that's okay. Same with War. They're all kind of stand alone, but still part of this larger trilogy. And it made me like the Apes movies again, which I was never really high on growing up even. Like the Charlton Heston one's fine. But yeah, those two in particular Dawn, it's very strong.
My 29 has actually been a last minute change because it was a different movie. It was, before we recorded this section,
No. You don't get to say what it is. You don't get to say...
No, I'm not going to say what it is.
Yeah, okay.
It was. I'm going to say what it is, but I'm just saying the context. It was a movie from 2019. However, in the past week, I have seen another movie from 2019 that displaces it on my. So I'm like, well, that has to be recognized on this, and so I'm just going to take the other one out and put this one in instead.
This is stupid. If you saw a movie from 2019 this week that was better than this one, and presumably the one that was here before was still better than the 20 odd movies you've already talked about.
It was, but it was too late to get rid of to get rid of something else. So I'm just one out, one in. This is the neatest way I could think of doing it.
Just let it stick as when you wrote the list. Just let
I
it
could have done
stand.
that, but
When you start revealing the list of the world, it's locked in and you don't change it.
oh please, I changed things on my list while we're recording.
I mean, you move things around possibly that you've not gotten to yet, but
Yeah,
this makes a mockery of the whole thing. Because now we know there's a movie that you like more than the 20 you've already talked about. That's not on here.
You'll never know what it is.
Don't want to know what it is. It's probably shite anyway. I was if the
I
last
don't think
pick,
you've even seen that movie, actually, to be honest with you.
if the last pick's starting to go by.
So my actual 29 is Jojo Rabbit, because it was such a surprise. This delightful movie, hilarious movie, set in Nazi Germany from a 10-year-old boy with an imaginary Hitler friend, and it sounds insane, and it shouldn't be able to pull off the things that it does, yet it manages it, and it is such a good movie. And I had to just, but I had to bump the other one off for this.
You can save your negativity for my number 29, which is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I I know you're not as hot on this, but I don't know. I think it's such a fun movie. Again, another movie from Edgar Wright, who's a director. I think we all on the channel are like quite a bit. It's based on a really fun comic book. It's just Michael Cera is a slacker who is I don't know if people realize it, but he's like a bad guy. Like I think this is one of those things where maybe people start relating to him too much, and he's like, no, he's kind of a piece of shit. But I mean, yeah, entertaining to watch, but like you shouldn't aspire to be him. But I mean, lots of cool like video game references and fun dumb action, and I don't know, just think just a fun cool little movie. And I think I was going through a really bad breakup at the time when this came out, so I think like to help me just keep my mind off it, I just like probably saw this in like theaters like 5 or 6 times. I remember actually walking out halfway through like one time because I was like I had another like a show to get to or something, but I was like, I don't know, I'll just watch this, and then I know I have to leave at like this time, but I can still watch the first half of this. But no, a lot of fun though.
Yeah, I've definitely never done that. I mean, Scott Pilgrim is fine. Like, I don't hate Scott Pilgrim. It's not quite my thing, and I like Edgar Wright as a director, but I do find this to be greatly loved, and it feels it feels a bit overrated to me. But it's
sure.
What's
29 is The Martian. Yeah,
I have to science the shit out of this.
Yep. Proof that Ridley Scott still has it somehow.
Yeah, when you give him a good script, Ridley Scott can still do it.
Yeah, really hits all the highs, and what just a good time at the movie theaters. It would be great science fiction, really, really funny, and emotional, and great performance from Matt Damon, who basically is just doing a YouTube video for half the film.
Yeah. And the
whole film.
The drama's really good as well. There's a moment in that film where you think everything's going fine, and I'm avoiding spoilers here, but something happens that really just shows how like quickly this could just turn deadly for him, and it feels so
you
dangerous.
Think you got routine down, but then like nothing's routine when you're on Mars.
What one little weather thing happens, and it's just like, oh wait, like he is on the brink of like absolute death right now, and there's like almost like one single little hiccup of that again could just completely kill him.
Yeah, because you watch him build everything, and when stuff like happens that causes things all that to go to waste, you're just like, oh, it's like you lost your potato farm,
My number 29 is Maniac, the Maniac remake from 2013. which I was not expecting anything from, and went in to see it, and about 5 minutes in realised, wait a minute, is this whole thing going to be one POV shot? Well, not one, I mean, there's cut, but like, the whole thing's a POV shot. Is this a POV of the killer, specifically? Which makes you feel very grimy and sleazy, and you feel demented. You feel the thrill of the chase, the thrill of the kill. It's a movie for, basically, weirdos, let's be honest. But it's very effective in what it does, and you feel like you're in a different world for the 98 or so minutes that it lasts, and there's very little else in cinema in the past decade that has achieved a similar experience. The closest thing I can think of from before this decade was probably Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. So, I guess let that put it in perspective to the sort of feeling that you're wanting from this. That said, more fun than that movie though, bizarrely. It's a weird thing to describe this one as fun per se, but Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is kind of soul destroying in how kind of macabre it is. This is more, I don't know, just, like I say, there's thrills to this. Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer didn't have thrills. You were in the killer's head, but it was all very kind of like seedy and like, oh, this is just nasty. But in this movie, well, there is definitely some disturbing stuff and there's still some nastiness. It's more about the thrill of the chase for the killer and how you're kind of along that ride.
Yeah, number 28, another sports movie, which I thought I'd have more, but turns out I was wrong. This is Creed, the Rocky sequel, starring Michael B. Jordan. Stallone's in there, and I dare say the best Rocky movie, at least for me. I know that people love the first one. They love 4, ironically. 3, maybe a little bit. But yeah, this I have to say, this is Coogler, right?
Yes, Coogler, yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan, hell of a team up, and it's Rocky for the new generation. Like that, if I have to say there's one slight against it, is it almost follows a little bit too close to the first Rocky, but I think that it nails it. The boxing scenes are fantastic. Tessa Thompson plays his love interest, and that's handled extremely well. Michael B is great as Creed, as Donnie, and yeah, I think this is the movie that really made me a Michael B. Jordan fan. Like, I'll check in anything he does. There's just a trailer that came out this week called Just Mercy that's coming out, where he plays a lawyer, which at this point he's been in superhero movies, he's been in these big budget stuff. And I'm like, I have enough faith in him as an actor to go see him in a criminal style movie. And he's just great. I remember seeing him in Friday Night Lights, the first season of The Wire as Wallace, and you always knew he was a really gifted actor, but it wasn't really until Creed that he really stood out for me. And I know a lot of people go, well, what about Fruitvale? I hadn't seen Fruitvale until I had seen Creed. I went back because after seeing what Coogler and him did, I had to go see that. And that's, just as amazing as of a performance. But I mean, Creed's more in my style. This is something I tend to rewatch if it's on cable. It's never one that I'm just like, hey, let's watch Creed. But if it's on, I'm going to enjoy it. And homages to Rocky. Stallone has a good role, as the mentor character, and it plays with the mythology well. So can't say enough good things about Creed.
My 28 is The Handmaiden. Now, I know Pete talked about this earlier on his list, so I won't talk about the plot too much. Just more, the reason this is here is the way it kind of sits with you for a long time, this movie. And the twists and turns as the movie goes, and the motivations for some of the things that happen are really fascinating. And these characters are so compelling, and sometimes they're good characters, sometimes they're awful characters, but they're all so compelling in their own way, and it makes it a joy and a horror to watch at the same time.
I'm assuming this is a movie that you did not see. That would be Your Name. Do you know what this is at all?
I think I vaguely know what it is because I think Connor's harped on about it. I believe it is an anime feature film. Yes.
Yeah. And it is one where it has a pretty. I don't want to say twist or something, but it is one of those things where maybe 3/4 of the way through or something, you kind of learn something that you don't want to get spoiled going in, but it's just a really like it's not like a big actiony anime, but it's like a really nice sweet one where basically these two characters, like one it's like this girl that kind of lives in this like countryside, kind of boring small town, and then this other guy kind of lives in the city, and they like wake up in each other's bodies, and they kind of like you know like learn about each other, and kind of like leave messages and stuff, and kind of get to explore like how the other one's lives and stuff. And it's just a really nice sweet movie, and then which has like kind of some surprising stuff towards the end, but it's really really good. I definitely would recommend it. And and a good animation too, which I love. I'm a big animation fan, but unfortunately we don't get too much of it anymore. It's mostly a lot of CGI stuff nowadays, but I always like a good animated film when I can get it.
28 is Ex Machina.
Ooh, some more sci-fi movies showing up.
Sci-fi, horror, sci-fi thriller, maybe.
I'd go more thriller, yeah.
Yeah, cautionary tale of putting human aspects into something that looks human, but definitely is not.
Cautionary tale of put your dick in a robot, more like.
Yes, even if she looks like Alicia Vikander. Don't do it.
Yes.
I mean, obviously it's about more than that, but really, really suspenseful, and really like great ending, great performances. Oscar Isaac is like unrecognizable in the film.
My number 28 is The Transfiguration. This is a movie about a teenager who thinks he's a vampire. Of course, it's actually a little bit deeper than that, and it's kind of a social commentary. And it's used to actually tell a story about the human condition and human drama. It's actually funny because, like, obviously everyone praises Get Out for being this transcendent horror film that brings this different lens from a different type of person to the horror genre, and explores all these topics. I actually think I like The Transfiguration a little bit more. Now, it doesn't necessarily tackle racism itself. It's not about racism per se. There's a little bit of it in there, but it's more about just the experience of the life of a black teenager who is living in a pretty crappy sort of standard of living. He's living with his bigger brother because his parents are gone, and he kind of falls into this vampire kind of fantasy as a coping mechanism, essentially. But it says so much about how he views the world and how he views himself because of how the world views him and what that does to him. It's a really it's a sort of horror drama, I'd describe it, because there's definitely the horror stuff there. There is killings, there is drinking of blood, but it's also incredibly sweet and tragic as well. And the performances are really good. This is one I caught up on this year, and I was very glad I did. It kind of blew me away. So The Transfiguration is a very unique style of vampire movie, and just proof that the genre has a lot of versatility, where we're a long way away from cloaks and stakes with hammers and all that crap that maybe a certain BBC show is still obsessed with doing in 2020.
Number 27 is a Spider-Man movie. It's probably not the one you're thinking. It's Spider-Man Homecoming. It's a Marvel film. And this took me by surprise. I was kind of over Spider-Man movies at this point. And after the Amazing Spider-Man movies and the really terrible... I say Amazing Spider-Man, I should say that's the title. I'm not calling them amazing because they're not. They're far from it. And Spider-Man 3 left a real bad taste in my mouth, but I trusted Marvel and the director, John... I always forget his name.
Watts.
John Watts, thank you. Trusted them to make a teen movie with the guys of Spider-Man, and it hits on every level. Tom Holland is perfect as Peter Parker. They changed some of the mythos for the better, I think. And Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, probably my favorite Marvel villain still. As good as we just talked about Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther was, Michael Keaton, just because I get exactly where he's coming from. He's just trying to provide for his family in a world that kind of tossed him away. And I look forward to see where this franchise goes, but it all starts with this one. And I still can't get over how good it is. It's definitely in my top Marvel movies being on this list. So, but yeah, I know Pete likes this one.
Oh yeah, I was pleasantly surprised because this came at a time when I was kind of in a bit of a weird place with Marvel movies. I was kind of sick of them. I had the fatigue, And I think I liked this one because it was more of a teen movie that just happened to be a superhero movie as well, as opposed to kind of focusing on that. It decided not to go super big.
Yep.
And I think that was to its benefit.
Focus on the school and him and his best friend. And
great supporting
you know,
cast. Yeah, there's a lot of humor.
Yeah. And
It felt right.
as I've gotten acquainted with Spider-Man, it's very true to that character where it focuses on Peter and the problems that Spider-Man creates for him. You know, here. Yeah, there's some fun scenes with Aunt May. Tony Stark plays a pretty key role into it, but I think Robert Downey Jr. is pretty good in it. But yeah, like you said, it handles his school and his friends, and just as with equal weight as it does with him being Spider-Man.
So my 27 is It Follows. This is a movie about essentially an STD, given ghostly form, and is, you know, teenager has sex, and then this thing appears and follows them, and, you know, if it gets to them, it'll kill them. But the catch is it doesn't do anything other than just walk towards them, so you can outrun it pretty easily, but it never stops coming. It never goes away. And the only way to get rid of it is to pass it on to someone else. And it's you know, it's pretty clear in its messaging and its point, but it is done in such a well expertly directed way. It's fantastically tense at times, and it's just this foreboding dread that it's just always there, and it's just a matter of time till it shows up. And it has got one of the best scores of the decade. The music is absolutely phenomenal.
So then my 27, I don't know if this is one you've seen either, but that would be a little movie I call Blackfish, which is a...
I've not seen this, no. Nor have I even heard of it, so I'm curious. Wow me, Tim, wow me.
I would assume that you've heard of it, that maybe you just don't recognize the name, but it is the documentary about Tilikum the whale at SeaWorld that killed a bunch of people.
Okay, yeah, vaguely, I think I'm aware of this existing.
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie, and I think Matt is not a big fan of it because I think he was... I could be wrong, so I apologize, Matt, if this was not your argument, but I think he thought it was too one-sided. But it's a documentary about, you know, the trainers at SeaWorld and how they treat the whales, and it's absolutely, you know, barbaric, you know, what they do to these things, and you know, in this one whale that, you know, specifically ended up killing, I think, was at least 2 or 3 people. Like it's more than one, which is very surprising. But what I think is so great about this movie is it feels like a serial killer story. It just happens to be that, you know, the killer in this instance is a whale. But it's like, you know, if you look at it, like, you know, it feels like you're watching like a crime story or something about the, you know, this kid that gets abducted as a child and like is abused and beaten by the people that are raising him, and then he, you know, starts to lash out you know, at his captors. So it's really fascinating, and admittedly, like, you know, the people that got killed, you know, it is very tragic that, you know, they don't deserve that. But again, like, it's just a really, really interesting story. And, you know, if you want to talk about like movies that have impacts, like this movie pretty much, like, you know, shut down SeaWorld. Like they're like, you know, they had to deal with so much, you know, like backlash and stuff. And I think I could be wrong, I'm not sure what the follow-up is, but I think they were, you know, getting rid of their, you know, killer whales, or, you know, at least doing something to, you know, fix their practices. But just really, really fascinating movie.
I'm sure there's a follow-up documentary about how everything had to change after this movie came out. That sounds like there's probably a story there.
I could be wrong, but I want to say, like, I don't know if it's like a full-on movie or just like maybe online videos or something, but I do think SeaWorld did have, like, you know, some retaliation thing. But I don't know. I like, admittedly, you know, again, the movie obviously does have an agenda, so you can call it very one-sided, but I don't think the other side, you know, could really defend itself that much.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm curious.
Also, I will say too that orcas one of my favorite animals. I love them.
My number 27 is a movie that I meant to have on my top 25 sci-fi films, and its placement here says it probably should have been in my top 10. It's Her.
Yep, I also forgot this in my top 25 sci-fi movies, like the fool that I am.
Yeah, we always have to forget one, so I forgot Her the first list, and this list I forgot Spider-Man. Her, yeah, it was a really, I watched it during like a really vulnerable time in my life. And like the romance in it, even though it was something that I knew was, I don't know, like not real because she's an OS system. I just was so happy that he wasn't lonely anymore. You know? And so I wanted them to have this together and to be together and be in love. And I love that it's like our not too distant future because it really seems like this is right around the corner for science fiction. And just a really good movie about relationships, and like maybe it doesn't matter that she's not real so long as he believes it's real.
I mean,
very sweet.
Very sweet. It could almost be one of the more uplifting episodes of Black Mirror. I mean, it really has kind of a similar idea to what that show could have. I agree. If anyone has ever felt lonely, and that's most people, let's be honest, will get a lot out of relating to this character. And Joaquin Phoenix is often like, he just played the Joker, right? And he's so usual at those kooky, like crazy characters, but this was such a more down to earth performance, this down to earth normal dude who's just lonely, and it's really, like I say, really relatable and really like just, and you know it can't be real, but you kind of like but like it's making him happy and it's not hurting anyone. Like no one's getting hurt by this.
Yeah.
So like whatever, like he's a consenting
and
adult.
You listen to them; they sound like they're soulmates.
Yeah, and she's a consenting AI. Like my number 27 is Midsummer, and this is Ari Aster's follow-up to Hereditary. This is a very unique horror movie. Again, I'm finding that in this past decade, a lot of the horror movies that have really stuck with me are the ones that are horror, but definitely have a lot more to say than just be scary or just be tense or whatever. And I think Midsummer is essentially about the horror of a relationship that needs to end. One half of it is certainly already checked out, but is too scared to actually end the relationship. And we sit through some of the most horrific social horror that the mind can possibly, you have scenes where the guy will, kind of just, you can come to the girlfriend in front of all his friends who are just sitting there awkward because they all know he wants to get rid of her, and you feel it in your bones, you feel it in your stomach. And the whole movie is the long drawn out process of this happening, which just happens to coincide with them going to Scandinavia and going to the summer festival, which may or may not give connotations or make you think of the Wicker Man, and the idea that something a bit more sinister is lurking, and we're going to get there by the end of the story. But it all comes together. But I think that much like Hereditary, the key to Ari Aster's horror movies is that it is very much the characters first, and it's about what they're going through and what they're doing, as opposed to having the concept of, like, there's a ghost in the internet or something. It's the horror stuff is bled into what the actual character drama is, and makes it a bit more highbrow, I suppose. Meaning that they don't do particularly well in theaters, and a lot of normies think, oh, this was boring, there wasn't enough jump scares. But the normies can suck it because Midsummer is great.
That was 27. This is number 26. It's a cop film starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena called End of Watch. And this movie tricked me into thinking I was a David Ayer fan. And while he's a fine writer, he directed this. And it was my joke when it came out was this is just Cops the movie, because it's almost a found footage vibe of these cops in the field. But the gritty story that it tells that involves the cartel and trying to make inroads into Los Angeles, and these two guys that are that share this bond, that they're more than work partners. Like they really are brothers. And Gyllenhaal's fantastic. Pena, this is the first time that I really noticed him as an actor, that he wasn't just a comedic side character. He really brings it here. Anna Kendrick has a small role, and she shows up and is pretty good. But yeah, I have a lot of love for this movie, and it made me very excited for Suicide Squad with David Ayer, and yeah, that was a complete whiff. But yeah, this is probably Ayer's best movie, I have to say, because he didn't direct Training Day, but he did write it. But he directed this one, and I went into Sabotage thinking he was going to be great because him and Arnold are together. And oh
my 26 is something that could not be more different from my 27. This is Teen Titans Go to the Movies. This is the movie version of the Teen Titans Go TV show, where it's basically just an hour and a half long episode, and it is delightful and hilarious and features some very, very catchy songs that are all fantastic. And yeah, I'm a big fan of the TV show anyway, so I was in for this from the start, and it delivered. It's very meta, funny, a lot of references to things that aren't just there for the sake of references. They actually form a joke beyond just, hey, look at this thing, and beyond just DC things as well. There's a lot of other jokes and references in there as well, and ultimately, it's just a hilarious movie, and that's all I can ask for.
You have this above It Follows. You are such a piece of shit.
This is better.
26, a movie I know that we're both fond of, and that is Under the Skin. Just a very weird, creepy, surreal Scottish film about Black Widow.
About Black Widow.
Luring men to her weird, like, inky house where they just go into the sunken place, I guess, and get devoured. But it's super weird. It's a slow burn. It's creepy, surreal, sci-fi, but it's
you should have kept that going. You said Black Widow, and then you said Sunken Place. You should have said it was directed by the ghost of Stanley Kubrick as well, just to make it the full reference sort of extravaganza.
It's one where it's hard to recommend to everyone, because I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but like if you get it, man, you're gonna love it, because it's just so weird and unsettling. But yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, Matt didn't get it, so we'll throw him under the bus. He hated it.
Next is Django Unchained.
I am not surprised at all.
Probably the tightest film that Tarantino's ever done. Just a really solid story. Fantastic characters. Again, we get a great Christoph Waltz, who apparently just needs to work with Tarantino exclusively and just let him write all of his characters. Because every time they're paired together, it's gold. Really awesome villain, and Leonardo DiCaprio, of all people. And didn't know that he could pull that off, but he did such a great job. And of course, Jamie Foxx. I can't exclude talking about Django.
Oh yeah, he's great in this. This is such a Tarantino often has a fun pulpiness to a lot of his movies. No pun intended, because he did a movie called Pulp Fiction. I'm not trying to make a pun, right? But he does often have a fun pulpiness to it. But this is maybe I think this and Kill Bill are his two pulpiest, and he's two just adventure-y, superhero-esque movies where the main character has to come up against these these odds against them. They're stacked. Yeah. And it's got a sweet story.
The scene at the end of the house is what a standoff. And I think of all the scenes of all the films in 2010 that I have seen, I think the one that I'll remember forever, that's burned into my memory, is just him arriving in that freaking blue suit.
It's so good.
So cool.
It's so good. My number 26 is Ex Machina. It's about an AI. It's about an AI that it may or may not be becoming sentient, and the character's trying to figure out via the Turing test if she is indeed become sentient. But ultimately, it becomes this game of who's actually smarter here. Is it the human in charge, the human who's there to test, who's kind of this hapless bystander who's been brought in to be kind of a an unbiased third party, is it, or the AI herself, like, is she the one who's actually got the upper hand here? And it kind of plays around with those ideas and what it means to be alive and human. And it does it in a couple of ways that are a little bit different to maybe other movies that have done it in the past. Because obviously this is not necessarily a new idea or topic. The idea of, is this computer, is this artificial person or robot alive and aware of what they are? This movie takes it in a couple of slightly different turns that I won't even give you the tone of the turns because that would spoil kind of, where it goes. Is it positive? Is it negative? I won't say. But it does have its own little unique touch to it. And it's Alex Garland who did this, who also wrote Dredd, didn't direct Dredd. Although there's a lot of, if I remember right, there's rumours or something that he ended up directing a lot of it due to
I've heard
on-set problems. Well. But he did direct this, and this was his first, credited full, movie director, debut. And I think he does a great job. He does a lot with very little in terms of sets, although the visual effects actually look pretty great whenever they do pop up. Like, there's not a lot of them, but when they're there, they're very convincing, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they showed a lot of restraint with how much they used them, and that made it, they looked really high quality when they did because of that.
Yeah, if the choices always have a lot of effects that look crap or have like 2 effect shots that look really good, somehow make it into the 2. Like do the 2 really good
and
ones.
when you're a writer as talented as Alex Garland is, you can write it into the 2.
Yeah, if you can afford 5 or 6, great. But if you only have 2, then just make sure those 2 matter and look great. And that'll bring an end to this part of our top 50 movies of the decade. Do let us know what you think of our picks in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at Mild_Fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel and everything we do, you can head over to patreon.com/MildFuzzTV and support us for as little as $1 per month and keep all the content coming. Get some bonuses for your troubles. So go and have a look-see. You can also share us on social media and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, that's pretty much us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. Look out for part 6 coming soon. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.